I could see Killar's shadow on the canvas wall. He was leaning on the rifle, waiting until the white men were out of sight before he took a nap. I knew Killar. He was a strong brute, light-fingered and greasy, a crossbreed of Tajik, an Arab, and Dawar. His eyes were shifty, but he had a bold front. He wore dirty robes and a Punjab turban. I knew I had to get loose from there. I began to work at my wrist ropes. It was a good thing to have small hands. By pulling up the slight slack in the rope, I managed to slip my cuffs. I was about to get up when I saw Killar's shadow begin to move. He came stealthily, carrying the gun as though he wanted to use it. I lay back and pretended to sleep. He lifted the flap of the tent and shoved his dirty face into the slit. He stood there and assured himself that I was not dangerous. He hefted the rifle and came forward. When he leaned over me, I let him have it. I doubled up like a jackknife and rammed my heels into his stomach. With a mighty kick, I sent him sprawling across the tent, shaking the frail structure as though a cyclone had hit it. Leaping up, I tried to dive at him and put him out of action, but my foot caught in a blanket and threw me flat on the floor. Killar acted on impulse. He brought up the rifle butt and drove its hell down at my face, hard and fast, to drive my nose through the back of my head. But at the last instant, I managed to roll aside, and the butt kicked up dirt beside my ear. Snatching at Killar's boots, I pulled him down on top of me. He struggled and dropped the rifle. His hand was at his belt, and he fought to get out his knife. I was almost smothered in his robes. He smelled like long-dead sheep. He had his knife. I saw it flash over me. He drove it down at my side. With a frenzied effort, I managed to capture his wrist and hold it back. His teeth were bared in a snarl. He was berserk, and his strength was terrific. Nothing could hold that wrist for long. With my free hand, I slammed a body blow at him. He went limp for a second, and I gave him another one. The knife went spinning, and I threw him aside. Killar knew he was losing the fight now. He was plainly scared. He leaped back, trying to get out of the tent. He struck a pole, and the ridge bowed dangerously. Abruptly, the whole thing came down, wrapping us up in its heavy folds. I felt something scratching around behind me. Killar was trying to find his knife. I dived for him, but only managed to get an armload of canvas. The sharp blade was in his hand now. It pierced the canvas an inch from my face. This was no place for me, and while he freed his knife, I clawed out of the confining tent and drew a deep breath of air. I hadn't finished him yet. He knew I was outside, and with the knife to lend him courage, he was coming after me. In an instant, he burst out before me, knife raised. I drove a fist under the blade and sidestepped at the same time. It was a clean, lucky blow. I let him have another one as he went down. I had only one thought in mind. I had to get out of there and get to a British outpost and bring order out of this chaos. Hastily, I crammed some food into a bag, picked up the water canteens, and ran toward the plane. I threw the water bags into the cabin and threw on the mags. I went around and pulled the prop through. It was hot enough, that motor. The sun was enough to burn you into charcoal. Nothing came of the pull, and I tried again. Sand, I said to myself. I expected Mallard and Lancaster to come back any minute. I had to work like the devil if I wanted to get out of here without having a murder pinned on me. If I got to the British first, I had a chance to make my story stick. Nothing happened the second and third time. Fuming, I glanced at the intake lines. A section was missing. Damn them! They knew I might get out. They hadn't trusted Killar. I had to get that brass line before I could escape. In a frenzy, I cut around the wing and came back to the pit. Maybe I had some spare brass tubing, anything to make that engine percolate. I had forgotten Killar. In the toolbox, I discovered the makings of a water condenser. I whipped off the tubing and began to fix the connections. Somehow I had to get it to work. My life and reputation were at stake. For 15 minutes I worked there, sweating and swearing, and then I had it almost finished. In another few seconds I would be starting the engine and getting out. A soft voice behind me, a voice filled with careless menace, said,
"Do not move, please."
I whirled to face Killar. He had the rifle and stood there covering me with it. His face was bloody, and he looked as though the merest spark would contract the trigger.
"I have a kind heart. I need you, and I will not shoot if you give me your word not to start fighting again."
You need me?